The time is 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Dulbin Samarasinha and read by Ramesh Pires. First, the headlines. The IMF representatives meet the President. The Finance Minister leaves on an official visit to India. Locally produced saline issued to all government and private hospitals. Minister Dallas Ala Peruma says the debt crisis has occurred due to a gap in the import and export policy. The opposition protest blocks roads in Colombo. Global South recognizes Sri Lanka's commitment to promoting reconciliation and human rights through national processes. In news overseas, fears expressed that Russian aggression could spill into Poland. In sports, cricket, Women's World Cup, Australia beat West Indies for fourth successive win. And now the local news in detail. A group of IMF representatives met President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat. Among them were IMF Asia Pacific Director, Deputy Director and Resident Representative for Sri Lanka and Maldives. President Secretary Kamini Senarath, Chief Advisor Lalit Weeratunga and Additional Secretary Chandipa Wickremesinghe were present on the occasion. Minister Basil Rajapaksa has left on a 2-day official visit to India. Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, S.R. Artigala, is accompanying the minister. It is reported that agreements would be signed to purchase essential food items and medicines needed by Sri Lanka. Saline produced by State Pharmaceuticals Manufacturing Corporation has been issued to the local market. Kelun Life Sciences Company produces the products locally. Sri Lanka needs about 26 million litres of saline annually. A large amount of foreign exchange has been spent so far to import the products. Sri Lanka commenced producing saline in September 2021. Saline requirement of all government hospitals has been met locally. State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana said that 28% of medicines needed by the country is now produced locally. The State Pharmaceuticals Manufacturing Corporation produces 80 varieties of medicines needed by the country. The State Minister said another 500 varieties of medicines are produced together with the private sector. 60 million paracetamol tablets will be issued to the market in future. Minister Dallas Ala Peruma says that the dialogue commenced in the country for an all-party conference is a good entry point to solve problems. He said that the government has a good understanding about the present issues. The debt crisis has occurred due to a gap in the import and export policy for a long time. The previous governments have paid loans through various methods. He said the present government also following those measures. He pointed out rising oil prices in the market has created economic problems. Chairman of the Patriotic United National Party, Sugat Hewapathirana, says that the opposition has caused hardships to the people by gathering them in Colombo. He said such activities hamper daily activities of the people. He further said the matured opposition should build a dialogue to save the country from crisis. However, he said the present opposition has taken immature decisions. Meanwhile, several roads in Colombo were blocked due to the protest of Samagi Janabala Vegaya. There were heavy traffic congestion on roads including High Level Road, Maligawat, Technical Junction and Maradana. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with more local news. The Foreign Ministry says intervention from the states of the Global South recognize Sri Lanka's commitment to promoting reconciliation and human rights through national processes, including through legislative reforms and the progress achieved in this regard despite COVID-19 related challenges. They also underscored the importance of the Human Rights Council and the international community supporting voluntary national processes as well as upholding the core principles of impartiality, non-selectivity and non-politicization. Among the matters stressed by the intervenient delegations were concerns over the micromanagement of Sri Lanka's internal, constitutional and governance matters and the imperative of strict adherence to the provisions of the UN Charter and relevant UNGA and HRC resolutions. It was also stressed that cooperation with international human rights mechanisms should be without any external pressure from outside, with states having the power to determine their priorities and areas for international assistance, and that only cooperative action will be truly effective and contribute to the real strengthening of human rights in a country. Certain intervenient delegations also disagreed with the roles being set for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in collecting evidence, noting that the decision of the OHCHR to establish an accountability project is a breach of its mandate. The exorbitant cost of this mandate in the region of $3 million was also commented on. The Ministerial Consultative Committee on Lands agreed to submit 2 regulations pertaining to the Land Development Ordinance to Parliament for approval at its committee meeting held on the 11th. The agreement was arrived at the Ministerial Consultative Committee on Lands chaired by Minister of Lands S.M. Chandrasena. Amendment of income limits to be taken into consideration in issuing license and grants as determined by paragraphs under Regulation 3 of the Land Development Order Ordinance prepared in the year 2014 and the minimum allocations limits of lands relating to licenses and grants issued under Land Order 115 of 1985 will be amended accordingly. A discussion took place at the President's Media Centre on the theme Challenges of Geneva Human Rights Sessions and Sri Lanka. Expressing his views, Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Admiral Professor Janath Kodambage said that there was no war against people in the country. He said it is a problem questioning rising against terrorism in Geneva. One of the main tasks at the Human Rights Session was to counter-argue problems of the High Commissioner and to represent information before the International Committee. He said the UN cannot be pressurized by holding protests at various places. He further said action should be taken by identifying problems of the people in the northern and eastern provinces. Minister of Transport Dilum Amnukama says the train ticket fares have to be revised in line with the recent fuel price hike. His remarks came during today's media briefing to announce the cabinet decisions. The Cabinet of Ministers has given the approval for the train ticket fare revision. He noted that there had been no increase in train ticket fares despite the increase in fuel prices in the recent past. Kohola police have arrested a businessman with a stock of sharp weapons including swords and drugs at a house in Kalabuvila, Kohola. Police seized 8 swords, 3 knives, a replica of a T-56 firearm made of plastic, ice and marijuana. The raid was conducted following a tip-off that a businessman from Kalabuvila was involved in drug trafficking. And that concludes local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Power Minister Pavitra Vaniaraja says the rolling power interruptions will no longer be experienced at free trade zones under the Board of Investments. She said this during a discussion held with State Minister of Aviation and Investment Zone Development, Secretary Janaka Chandragupta, BUI Chairman Rajeshwari Surya, BUI Director General Renuka Veerakon and several other officials of the board. The officials told the minister that nearly 14 free trade zones are currently under the purview of the BOI. The Power Minister has directed the Electricity Board not to interrupt the electricity supply for the factories in free trade zones under the BOI. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Watch Life is brought to you by
More prizes, more gains with CIB New Year offers. Valuable gifts for every bill. 20% discount for bank cards until 10th of April. Visit CIB today.
In Watchlight, to the Library from Parliament program organised by the Department of Communication of Parliament of Sri Lanka with a view to communicate accurate information about the Parliament of Sri Lanka to the public was inaugurated at the Colombo Public Library recently. The objective of this program is to distribute publications including books on Parliament to public and school libraries island-wide. An awareness program on parliamentary procedure was conducted at the Colombo Public Library with the participation of senior officials of Parliament and Colombo Public Library. And that came to you in Watchlight. A bulletin of world news follows.
More prizes, more gains with CIB New Year offers. Valuable gifts for every bill. 20% discount for bank cards until 10th of April. Visit CIB today.
Moving on to
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
No matter what anyone says, for your lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, Friendly Leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Moving on to the bulletin of world news, first the headlines. Fears expressed that Russian aggression could spill into Poland. The UK says the West made a terrible mistake after Crimea. And Indian probes in accidental missile fire into Pakistan. And now the world news in detail. With Russia's war in Ukraine raging on its doorstep, Poland is holding its breath. It feels vulnerable on two fronts as the number of refugees coming into the country swells and a military base near its border with Ukraine was attacked. As a first responder in one of Europe's biggest refugee crises since World War II, over 1.7 million Ukrainians have chosen to flee to Poland, according to the UN's latest figures. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said the West made a terrible mistake and let President Vladimir Putin get away with annexing Crimea in 2014. Writing in The Telegraph, Mr. Johnson said ending the West's dependence on Russian oil and gas was vital to end the bullying from the Kremlin. It comes as the Foreign Secretary is expected to announce further sanctions. India has ordered a high-level probe after it accidentally fired a missile into Pakistan, saying it was taking the matter very seriously. The incident happened on 9th March, but India acknowledged it 2 days later, blaming a technical malfunction during maintenance. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh told Parliament today that the incident was regrettable, expressing relief that no one was killed. Back to the headlines of the world news. Fears expressed that Russian aggression could spill into Poland. The UK says the West made a terrible mistake after Crimea. And India proves accidental missile fire into Pakistan. And that concludes the Bulletin of World News.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
For your wheel lease, visit the Leasing Mahagedara. People's Leasing, friendly leasing Mahagedara. More information from the nearest People's Leasing branch.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Development News is brought to you by... Let's take all out of the coconut tree and make the island thriving and prosperous. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928.
15,000 families have been given houses under Obatagyak Ratatahetak housing program. Constructions of 20,000 houses under the program commenced last year. Plans have been drawn to build a house at each Grama Seva division this year. Apart from that, houses are also being built at electoral divisions. And that was Development News.
Development News was brought to you by... The coconut tree is well grown in almost all the parts of the island. It is an exceptional source of extra income. The shell, the husk and almost all the parts of the coconut tree makes you money, providing you with an excellent extra source of income. It will also help to nourish the economy of the country. You will be guided with all necessary informations regarding the coconut cultivation, with the novel cultivation techniques and all other related and upgraded informations by the Coconut Research Institute, Lunavilla. Call our hotline 1928. WhatsApp 070 400 1928. Sports News is brought to you by
Sampath Bank. We present your future.
Moving on to sports, it's cricket. Today is the day 4 of the second test between Pakistan and Australia in Karachi. Batting first, Australia declared their first innings for 556 runs for 9 wickets. They declared their second innings for 97 runs for 2 wickets. Pakistan scored 148 in their first innings. Pakistan were 192 runs for 2 wickets in their second innings at stumps today. Usman Khawaja scored 160 runs, Alex Carey 93. Meanwhile, Australia continued their march towards the Women's World Cup semi-finals with a 7-wicket demolition of West Indies in Wellington. West Indies were hustled out for only 131, with Elise Perry and Ash Gardner claiming 3 wickets each. Opener Rachel Haynes made an unbeaten 83 as Australia chased their target with 19.4 overs to spare. Australia topped the 8-team group with 4 wins from 4 games, while West Indies lie 5th. A second defeat in their 4th match leaves West Indies sitting outside the semi-final places. And that was Sports News.
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB U Trust.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Celonex, a leading Sri Lankan IT company, has expanded its business and opened a branch in Dubai. Celonex is a provider of IT services, web design, software development and app development in various fields. The new branch in Dubai is yet another step forward. Ceylon-X currently has branches in the United States, Australia and Canada. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by
Cash through NSP globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSP Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency 3 times through NSB You Trust.
Economic News, courtesy of
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The earnings from tourism has exceeded $500 million for the first 2 months of the year, with the industry generating in excess of $300 million for the month of February. Provisional data from the central bank showed that the tourism sector generated $314.5 million in February. The total foreign exchange contribution by the sector for the first 2 months of the year amounts to $582.7 million. And that was Economic News. The weather report is next.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The Weather Report.
And finally, on to the weather report. The Met Department says showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces and in Kalutara district. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and Uva provinces and in Gond and Mathura districts during the early morning. And that was the weather report. And to end this news broadcast, a recap of the main news headlines. The IMF representatives meet the President. The Finance Minister leaves on an official visit to India. Locally produced saline issued to all government and private hospitals. Minister Dallas Allah Peruma says the debt crisis has occurred due to a gap in the import and export policy. The opposition protest blocks roads in Colombo. Global South recognizes Sri Lanka's commitment to promoting reconciliation and human rights through national processes. In news overseas, fears expressed that Russian aggression could spill into Poland. In sports, it's Cricket Women's World Cup. Australia beat West Indies for 4th successive win. And with that, we conclude this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.